Hello everyone and welcome back to another Borderlands 3 video. My name is Nootmad and today I'll be taking you guys through some important pieces of information that I think every Moze player should know about. In the last episode we covered just a few of Moze's class mods and discussed their strengths and weaknesses. In this episode I'm going to continue with that and finish off the rest of our class mods. I hope you guys find this video useful, and without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay, so for the first class mod of this episode, we're going to be covering the Bear Trooper class mod. The Bear Trooper class mod gives Iron Bear 50% lowered fuel usage and 50% extra duration. What does this mean? This basically means that Iron Bear can last an incredibly long time. And this takes us to its first selling point, and that is its ability to give you an Iron Bear that lasts a very long time. That also has a lot of armor as well as damage when combined with the right gear combinations. So, for those of you who don't know, Iron Bear's armor is scaled off the amount of health you have. There are different shields and relics, as well as class mod and relic rolls that can boost the maximum amount of health you have. That'll increase Iron Bear's armor. So shields like Mendel's multivitamin shield, the Rough Rider, and this old god I currently have on the screen right now, all boost maximum health, and in turn, that can boost the amount of armor that Iron Bear has. So, Bear Trooper class mod also boosts Stainless Steel Bear, which is a skill in Moze's Demolition Woman skill tree that boosts Iron Bear's fuel, armor, and damage. Having the Bear Trooper can give you an extra 5 points in that, and at 10 out of 5 you can get 60% armor, 40% damage, and 40% extra fuel on Iron Bear. And this is just absolutely powerful when you're trying to make an Iron Bear build. So, a powerful Iron Bear build is every Moze player's dream. This is probably why we all picked her in the first place, expecting to be able to run an Iron Bear build, and Bear Trooper can do just that. So all in all, the Bear Trooper class mod can give us an insane boost to the potential of Iron Bear, and that shouldn't be forgotten. But now for the downsides. Currently, Iron Bear does not scale well at all, past about Mayhem level 6, and this affects Iron Bear's viability. Even with a lot of min-maxing and perfect gear rolls, and perfect shields, and all of that sort of thing, an Iron Bear build still doesn't hold up well in Mayhem 10, and this impacts Bear Trooper's ability to pull his own weight in the highest levels of difficulty. However, with the coming patch for DLC 3, Gearbox has told us that they're going to be bringing a lot of actual skill balancing changes, so at the end of the day, we just have to wait and see how Iron Bear turns out once these changes take place. So, second to that, even if these scaling changes are great and an Iron Bear build does succeed and Bear Trooper can enable that, the other downside of the Bear Trooper class mod is that it poses no benefits for Moze itself, as the skills Stainless Steel Bear, Explosive Punctuation, and Grizzled only have an effect on Iron Bear and not Moze at all. So this limits Moze's ability to boost her own damage potential past what you can do with just a standard build and gear, and is therefore limiting in its flexibility. For example, you can't exactly run a bossing build or a mass mobbing build with Bear Trooper. Once your Iron Bear runs out or gets destroyed, it's got to go back on cooldown. Moze doesn't have much damage through her class mod to boost that. Class mod such as a Mindsweeper or a Blastmaster can constantly give Moze access to a lot of damage, and a Bear Trooper class mod doesn't exactly do that, as it only just buffs Iron Bear. So overall, the Bear Trooper is a solid class mod for its intended purpose, but poor scaling of Iron Bear and its lack of scaling in higher Mayhem levels impacts its overall use. So anyway, that's Bear Trooper done, and let's move on to the next class mod. So, the next class mod we're going to review in this video is the Mindsweeper class mod. What the Mindsweeper class mod does is that it gives you a 25% chance to drop a micronade on every critical hit you make that explodes after a short time. So, in my opinion, the Minesweeper is without a doubt the best class mod for Moze's burst damage for a few reasons, and I'm going to run through them now. Firstly, the Minesweeper micronades scale from a lot of different multipliers and can even double dip, which is a feature I briefly touched on in my episode 1 when I discussed short fuse. A Mindsweeper micronade can scale from the critical hit damage that triggered it initially to spawn, splash damage buffs through torque cross motion, splash damage rolls, class mod, and your relic. You can benefit from grenade buffs, elemental multipliers, as well as a few other multipliers, which I'll go into more in depth on in a future video. Just know that micronades have the potential to scale to incredible amounts of damage, as long as you have the rolls and the weapons to support it. The Mindsweeper micronade also inherits the base element of the gun that spawned it. So basically, if I was to shoot a shock Sandhawk for example, and land a critical hit and that was to spawn a Mindsweeper nade, that Mindsweeper nade will also be of the shock element. So secondly, those Mindsweeper nades can spawn any form of critical hit damage, and that includes for that of your grenades. This mechanic is what enabled grenade spam builds to be so powerful. However, since Mayhem 2.0 released, grenades didn't scale with your Mayhem level, and that build fell off in viability. So how is this all possible? Because of the Demolition Woman's skill tree, or the Holy Pin. Best skill gives most grenades a chance to score a critical hit. Those critical hits can also apply to Mindsweeper nades. Because we know the Mindsweeper nade spawns a grenade on a critical hit, those Mindsweeper grenades can in effect proc itself, which can result in a very large Mindsweeper chain, and each Mindsweeper nade will do exponentially more damage. So if that doesn't make much sense to you, all you need to know is that Mindsweeper nades can result in an insanely high damage output, and enable the one-shot of theoretically any boss in the game, provided they don't have immunity phases. So, thirdly to that, Mindsweeper can also roll two of Moze's arguably best skills, Redistribution and Torque Cross Promotion, which is the skills I have on my class 1 right now. Torque Cross Promotion, as we all know, is a skill in Moze's Demolition Woman skill tree, and that boosts splash damage size as well as splash damage. Combine that with Redistribution, which gives Moze ammo regeneration and health regeneration for 3 seconds. The utility from just having those two skills on your class 1 is incredible. So, despite all these positive selling points that Mindsweeper has, it also has its downsides. That is, Mindsweeper nades requires crits to even function. Some enemies have hard to hit crit spots, and some bosses have even harder to hit crit spots, and this results in its damage ability being inconsistent in a fair few situations. For example, you might go for an entire boss fight that's always moving around and doesn't show its crit spot much, and you won't be able to hit as many crits and spawn as many Mindsweeper nades to make full effect of that class mod. That sort of limits its potential to provide you with a consistent damage bonus. So a class mod such as Blastmaster or even Green Monster can always give you a constant access to a damage bonus without much conditions. Blastmaster as long as you don't reload, Green Monster as long as you keep firing. Mindsweeper class mod needs you to hit critical hits, and if you're not hitting those critical hits, you can't exactly make good use out of the class mod. So another downside of the Mindsweeper class mod is that if you are using a Mindsweeper class mod, chances are you're running a very powerful splash build, and in most situations when you're killing normal mobs in areas like Athenas or Pandora, a lot of those mobs will die before you can even get your Mindsweeper nade to spawn and explode. A lot of those enemies will die in just a couple of shots from any decent weapon that you have on a splash Moze build, and the Mindsweeper nade doesn't really have a chance to spawn. So at the end of the day, you're not exactly making use out of that Mindsweeper class mod, and you might be better off using a Green Monster or a Blastmaster class mod instead. So overall, for pure damage, the Mindsweeper is still king, but its inconsistency and requirements to always crit doesn't always enable it to be applied to every situation you may encounter. So that's it for Mindsweeper, and now we're going to move on to the next com. Alrighty, so next up we have the Sapper class mod, one that was released in the Guns, Love and Tentacles D2. What it does is it gives Moze increasing amounts of lifesteal the longer she holds down the fire button. And its potential is exactly what you would think. Moze has the ability to fire guns for a very long time. Sapper works better the more you fire a gun. So ultimately, this just gives the potential for Moze to have pseudo-invincible, especially if you are tossing grenades at the same time to trigger and maintain Vampire. For those who don't know, Vampire is a skill in Moze's Demolition skill tree, and what it basically does is that whenever Moze damages an enemy with a thrown grenade, it restores a portion of health. And also benefits from this, and this is why grenades like Burning Maddening Tracker that I equipped is good for a skill like that, as it creates a lot of projectiles which can proc a lot of Vampire and give you a lot of regen. Combine that with what Sapper does, which gives lifesteal, sorry, you can tank an incredible amount of damage and just dish out constant damage. So this class mod very much pushes the concept of a tank Moze playstyle that just bullet hoses enemies and in turn heals Moze by an enormous amount. Next benefit is that it's currently the only legendary class mod that boosts Means of Destruction. What Means of Destruction does, that once again, it's another skill in Moze's Demolition skill tree that gives Moze ammo regeneration based on the number of splash instances she makes. So, as I said before, Sapper can boost Means of Destruction and is the only legendary that can do so. This means that heavy weapons that would typically consume a lot of ammo, like the Plague Bearer, the Iron Cannon, and the Backburner, all work well with it. as it can provide you with substantial ammo regen and is therefore giving you the ability to constantly fire a weapon like that. The downside of that, however, is you can't always ramp up to the maximum amount of lifesteal potential, but you can fire those weapons long enough to help you survive in the majority, even if you aren't getting the full burst of Sapper. So the Sapper class mod also boosts Iron Bank at match set, which once again further pushes the limits of bottomless max playstyle. Match set and Iron Bank are both skills in my skill tree that boosts her magazine size. Being able to boost those skills gives you a large mag, in turn lets you fire a gun for a very long time, and that in turn in Sapper, the longer you hold down the fire button, you get lifesteal. So that's for the positives. The negatives are pretty straightforward as well. The Sapper class mod offers next to no damage bonuses, whether it be through its special effect or the skills it can roll. So lifesteal doesn't provide you damage, and neither does means of destruction, Iron Bank, or match set. If you're a Moze player that wants to maximize the amount of damage you can do, Sapper is definitely not. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the Borderlands meta has evolved to become a situation where the best form of defense is just to do the most amount of damage possible. The Sapper class mod does not advance the possibility of a style like that, therefore limiting its viability in what is basically every endgame Moze build. So, secondly, as a result of Moze's recent buffs, one being that redistribution now gives you health regen, and Russian offensive now giving you 8% lifesteal, not to mention the fact that those two skills alongside the vampire are picked up in almost every meta Moze build. You can take my Sack Moze build for example that I recently released. Those three skills combined completely invalidate what Sapper can provide. Prior to those skills being buffed or introduced, Sapper class mod did what it does and it did it well. However, now that those skills have been given lifesteal health regeneration, sort of makes that Sapper class mod redundant, which is quite unfortunate. So, once again, the Sapper doesn't provide any other meaningful boost beyond lifesteal, and there's no need to stack on more than you need to. So, overall, the Sapper isn't exactly a bad class mod, just a victim of poorly timed character balancing. If you enjoy a tank Moze playstyle, the Sapper can work incredibly well, but if you're a Moze player that just wants to go all in on damage, Sapper is far from your best bet. On to the next class mod. Now we arrive at Green Monster class mod. This class mod released alongside the Handsome Jackpot DLC a couple months ago, and with this class mod, what you see is what you get. The longer Moze fires a gun, she gets an increasingly ramping corrosive damage bonus. This obviously would work incredibly well against armored enemies, as well as enabling Moze access to a bonus element. It doesn't involve her triggering action skill end. So whether that be through the 50% elemental anointment you can have on your shield or grenade, or the next to mag elemental anointment you have on your weapons, Green Monster class mod just gives Moze a constant access to an elemental damage multiplier that doesn't require the use of Iron Bear, which is really good for Moze. A lot of people who have played her would realize that getting in and out of Iron Bear to constantly upkeep elemental damage bonuses gets a bit tedious. So Green Monster comes in and just gives you a persistent damage bonus that's an element provided you're up firing. So this class mod reinforces the traditional bullet hose Moze playstyle, and that's quite useful because that's what a lot of players nowadays when it comes to playing Moze. And not to mention, corrosive in itself is a good element to use, only having a negative damage modifier to shields, but aside from that, its bonus damage to armor and neutral damage on flesh makes it a very good element to use regardless. So the Green Monster class mod can boost Click Click, which is a skill in the screen tree that gives her increased gun damage the lower her magazine size is, but currently it is bugged on the Green Monster class mod and can only boost it by +1. Green Monster class mod can also boost Iron Bank, which increases Moze's magazine size, and Scorching RPMs, which gives Moze increased fire rate and critical hit damage, and also increases Iron Bear damage as well. So, a +5 Scorching RPMs Green Monster has the potential to reach really high critical hit damage numbers. When combined with a Monarch, for example, that has a lot of bullets, has a high magazine size, that Monarch was anointed for, let's say, 150% radiation damage while under 50% health, Moze gets access to two very powerful elemental bonuses, and this enabled her to deal with any enemy type in the game without much issue. So, not to mention the fact that Scorching RPMs boosts Iron Bear, so in a sense, having a +5 Scorching RPMs Green Monster give Moze a solid damage bonus, and also give Iron Bear a solid damage bonus as well. So that makes it a bit of a jack of all trades type class mod. So once the scaling changes for Iron Bear comes in, Iron Bear is able to do damage in higher mayhem levels. Green Monster has the potential to be a pretty well universally applicable class mod. So, what's the downside of Green Monster, you might be asking? Well, to the ramp up to the max corrosive damage for a Green Monster, it takes about 15 seconds. And if you want to make a net gain, you'll have to fire it for about 30 consecutive seconds. This in itself makes it tedious and forces you to heavily invest in the bottomless mags tree. More often than not, you'll be forced to spec into very high magazine size skills, as well as Forge, potentially even some for the road, just to get that free ammo for 5 seconds. That's basically free time to ramp up damage. To pick up all these skills, you need a lot of skill points, and that restricts the rest of the number of skill points you can put in Demolition Woman or Shield of Retribution tree. So ultimately, the Green Monster sort of restricts you in your build if you choose to take Green Monster to its highest potential. So all in all, the Green Monster is a solid class mod, having boosts to both Iron Bear and Moze, but it does require heavy investment to utilize it to its highest potential. And yeah, that's it for Green Monster. Now we're going to move on to the next class mod. And now for our 5th and final class mod for this video, and also Moze's 8th and final legendary class mod, we have the Raging Bear. So, this class mod released alongside the update that brought us Mayhem 4 way back when, and much like Bear Trooper, is a pure Iron Bear class mod. However, unlike the Bear Trooper, this class mod provides a bit more of a unique approach to an Iron Bear playstyle, and that is one of an aggressive playstyle. So, what it does is that it decreases Iron Bear's fuel usage which you need to kill, and increases Iron Bear's damage whenever it takes damage. So, essentially what this does, it just encourages a more in-your-face aggressive Iron Bear as opposed to Bear Trooper, which you could play quite passively. Raging Bear class mod benefits most when you're really in the thick of the action, taking damage, killing enemies, and just overall dealing a ton of damage. So, combined together, both these effects turn Iron Bear into a powerhouse of damage. Prior to the Mayhem 2.0 release, an Iron Bear build was a force to be reckoned with. Much like the Bear Trooper's role, Stainless Steel Bear can roll on the Raging Bear class mod, which gives Moze extra Iron Bear damage, armor, and fuel efficiency, and overall this enables a very strong Iron Bear based build. The class mod also boosts Stoke the Embers, which is a skill in Moze's bottomless mags tree that boosts incendiary damage, as well as Deadlines, which is an Iron Bear skill in Moze's Woman skill tree that increases Iron Bear's fuel efficiency essentially. So, all in all, these 3 skills can combine together to create a very efficient but also high damage Iron Bear build. It also has its strengths compared to Bear Trooper, but much like Bear Trooper, it also has its weaknesses. In the same vein, the weaknesses are the same. I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I'll just say this. Iron Bear doesn't scale well in higher mayhems, therefore that impacts the class's mod's ability to push itself into the meta builds. And yet again, much like Bear Trooper, Raging Bear only provides Iron Bear buffs, and this leaves Moze hanging and lacking in terms of damage to Moze itself. So, just like that, in a quick couple of minutes, we've reached the end of all of Moze's legendary class mods. I'll see you guys in a second. And just like that, we've reached the end of the video. That concludes a 2-episode series I've decided to make class mods. Don't worry though, that's not going to be end of the series. I'm still going to be making more episodes in the Ultimate Guide series, and in those future episodes I'm going to be breaking down skill trees, discussing the skills in incredible detail, discussing anointments, weapons, shields, grenades, and all things in between to help you guys master our favorite gunner. I hope you guys find this video informative. If you have any suggestions at all for what you would like me to cover in a follow-up video, or if you have any questions, just please let me know in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer each and every single one. But aside from that, thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I just want to thank you guys so much for all the continued support in the last few videos. It really means so much to me and motivates me to keep going. As long as you guys keep enjoying this content, I'm going to make sure I keep making more. So yeah, I hope you guys find this useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!